Good afternoon, everyone. Jakuyo. For those that don't know me, my name is Andrei Pavuk. I'm chair of the board. My life has been with Newstat ever since I was a little boy. My mother worked for Newstat, and I'm so proud of Newstat and so proud to be here today representing for the first time as chair of Newstat. It is my privilege to open today's general meeting and to thank each of you, all of our members, our guests, our community leaders and staff for being here. This marks the 66th year of Newstat. Last year we celebrated the 65th anniversary, a milestone that reminded us of the courage, resilience and determination of our founders and for our home of our heritage. Today we continue that journey, honouring our heritage, acknowledging our challenges and looking confidently to the future. Nasha Nadia. Let me go through to the second slide and we'll go through what today's proceedings are going to be about. In the first instance, we will look at our year in review. We'll take steps that we are preparing for our future, and then we'll go to the formal business end of this annual general meeting. Before we start the proceedings, I'd like to take a moment to speak to you about an important change to today's agenda. For many of you, there has been communication on Friday from the board that we met on Thursday evening and resolved to withdraw the Clause 75 resolution from the AGM from this meeting. Let me explain to you why. We currently have more than 9,500 members with nearly 8,000 eligible to vote and only 4% who cast a vote. Your voice matters. The voice of everybody, every member of Newstat matters. It is important to shape Newstat's future. And with such a low level of participation, the board thought it was responsible and appropriate to stop and pause. Over the last few weeks, we heard from a wide range of stakeholders. We heard from members, we heard from our staff, we heard from management, we heard from the board, we heard from our service providers, and we also heard from APRA. What came clearly through is that good governance depends on people having clear information, confidence in all the facts, and a chance to make an informed decision. That is a part of governance that we very much highly respect. What we are concerned about as a board, and what we want to very clearly to reassure all members, that there have been no plans whatsoever to sell the Essendon property. However, what we know, that there have been questions about APRA's confidential correspondence to the board, and whether it was somehow connected to a potential sale of Essendon. We understand those concerns. In fact, we deliberate about those concerns on a daily basis amongst all directors, amongst the CEO and amongst management. And what we came up with is this. Number one, we will inform APRA of the concerns of you that our members have raised. We need to spend some more time engaging with all stakeholders to provide clarity. We need to do our analysis, and we need to consider if we need to hold another extraordinary general meeting in 2026, but only and only if all stakeholders have all the correct information to make an informed choice. On behalf of the board, we very much thank you for your engagement. We thank you for your care, and we thank you for your commitment and your passion to ensure that Newstat has a long-term future. And that's what today's meeting is about. So, without further ado, let me go over how the agenda will work out. The first item will deal with our financial statements and reports for the year. Then, on the next slide, we'll look at the directors' remuneration for the coming year. And thirdly, we'll consider the appointment of directors for the next term. Okay. A little bit about Newstat. Nystad's geographic reach is across all of Australia. So therefore, before we begin, we will acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land which we are here, where we work and where we live, and pay our respect to all elders, past and present, and recognise that the continuation of all First Australians and Torres Strait Islanders and the ongoing connection to land, sea and community. Thanks for that. And I very much thank Buktan as our previous chair. He was very much resolute that we adopt our diversity and inclusiveness, and we recognise First Australians just like we recognise our heritage. Now, I'd like to acknowledge it to ask, I'd like now to, for you to all be upstanding for the spiritual hymn of Ukraine. Following the spiritual hymn of Ukraine, if you are able, please remain standing for a moment's silence for all those who have lost their lives in the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Thank you. Please remain standing for 1 minute of silence for all those who have lost their lives in the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Thank you, as we remember our deceased members and directors and staff who also passed away. Thank you for that. And please sit down. I'd like, before we start these proceedings, to also thank you to our Latvian neighbours who share the same values and for their outstanding support as the home of our heritage fights for its survival. As President Zelensky has said, this is a moment of history for Ukraine. Slava Ukraini. Thank you for that. Very much going to speak about a theme throughout this AGM about alignment of stakeholders. And the first stakeholders I'd like to acknowledge is our members, new members and old members. Newstad has over 9,000 members, by far and away the biggest institution in membership size in the Australian Ukrainian community. All the directors and staff are very proud of that. Our geographic reach is Australia-wide. We service members across many generations, many different backgrounds, individuals, families, religious entities, youth groups, community support groups, and special interest groups such as the wonderful museum, this museum that we're grateful of sitting here today. And I'd very much like to thank Maru, who's generously allowed us to have good old Archangel Michael standing next to me. I'm very proud of that, and hopefully he's looking after all of us today. Yeah. Thanks for that, and thank you, Salomia, who said to me that that icon is much better than what the photo was. Okay. The next thing I'd like to acknowledge is our staff. Now, I don't know where really to start, but on a Saturday morning, and let me tell you a little story. On a Saturday morning, I sit there having coffee with my wife, and my wife gets upset with me that I'm not concentrating on what she wants to discuss for the week, and that's a fact. But the reason why I do it is that not a week goes by without getting a wow factor from our beautiful staff. And what is that wow factor that our staff actually does for us? And the way they support our members is nothing more than exceptional. Our members have many different banking requirements, and our staff care for our members passionately. And this year has been a very trying year for them because I've asked, and I personally have led the transformation, and any mistakes that are made are all on me. I think the staff has gone through something exceptional this year. However, if we're to support and service our members, we must remember that we are an employer of choice in our community. In fact, we are the biggest employer of choice within our community by far. But we're moving to a community bank, and we are very mindful that you as our members need services and banking services in the modern age. That means that we must act in a more prudent manner than we actually have, and look at diversity and inclusion so that we can have the skills and competence and capability to serve you as our members and meet your banking requirements. We are changing. Staff, please bear with us as we move through this change, and I very much thank you for it. I'd like to very much introduce those people to our new executive team led by Ashley, and I'd like you also to give thanks to our old suite for their leadership and their steady commitment during a year of significant change as we lay our foundation for the future. Our executives, new and old, can only make us better. I'd like now to acknowledge my board, your board. And I'd like to acknowledge what we do with our board and very much who our personalities are. So I'm going to speak a little bit about our board. And I'll just read out the names of the board, and if you can just show your hands or stand up. Firstly, I'd like to introduce you to Pavlo. Pavlo comes from Ukraine. He's a CEO of an IT company, and he adds a great dimension to our board in the sense that he is probably the one with the clearest clarity of delivering the message that we need to deliver, and also one of the most decisive. Sometimes it moves a little bit too quick, but we all need to have our discussions and that. But I very much value his skill sets, and I very much value something that he brings to the board. And he says, remember, anything that we do, we need to make sure that our next generation knows what we're doing. And that's the skill that we need. I'd like to also now introduce you to Luke. Luke is a product of what makes Newstad great. Luke comes from Ukrainian, comes from a migrant background. Newstad did a magic thing for Luke, and that is he started his work experience in a financial services company called Newstad. He's now a risk manager in financial services, and he brings very much a process-driven, clarity-driven risk mitigation strategies to our board, and he also chairs the risk committee of our board. That dimension is invaluable to us. We source two people, or in fact I should say my predecessor sourced these two people to be on the board. I'd like to introduce you now to Nick. Nick is a second generation from Ukrainian heritage. His mother and Lassie, you weren't born here. Yeah, you were born here. Okay, so Nick is second generation. So Nick has got a passion for his community. He's an Essendonian. And if you're an Essendonian and you're Catholic, what do? You come from St. Bernard's. But Nick actually understands very eclectically the Essendon area. He understands what can be done with 912 and what can't be done with 912, and he's passionate and drives those things. And he's very heavily invested in his community. And I very much value that part of the dimension that he brings to our board. Which then comes to Bukdan. He brings everybody should know Bukdan. He was the ex-chair. But he alone was the one that recruited Pavlo, Luke and Nick to our board. And he also, during the most difficult times of our board, when the regulator was breathing down our necks, which the regulator was, he held the line for us, and he held the line for us to remain blue and yellow, but he also held the line for us to be diverse and inclusive within the greater Australian community. That's what Bukdan did, and it was pleasing when I took over as chair that he gave me invaluable advice during this year. So thank you very much for Bukdan for that. And the last member I'd like to introduce you to is our deputy chairman. Should I call him Johnny, or Ivas? As I call him. And that comes from Adelaide, passionate about the Adelaide community, but brings extensive knowledge of what financial services are and what a good community bank should do. John's one of the rare people in banking circles, and I very much understand the banking circles Australia-wide, and he's got a reputation of being second to none, of working with one of the major mutual banks that grew from 900 million to just around about 12 billion. His advice, his steady hand, his mentoring of younger directors is exemplary, and I very much thank him for the journey that we took on. And he keeps on saying, soldier on, keep moving. I'm excited about that. Well, if you're excited, I'm excited, John. And so thank you very, very much for that. The point that I want to make about our board is blue and yellow. Our board will remain blue and yellow as much as we know it. And it was surprising that some people even questioned it. It goes without saying it's not negotiable. All right. I'd like now to look at some of our stakeholders, and in particular, if we could go to the next slide, thanks. In particular, look at our auditor and the independence declaration that was made from Bradley Bahun from Crow. Crow have been our auditors for a number of years. They're exceptional. They're exceptional, and they're exceptional for a thing that they give us. They give us very good, savvy advice and independence. Not only that, I'd like to pay special tribute to what alignment is all about. And as good as Crow is, it's nowhere near. It needs to be tempered a little bit by our management and our board. And Paul, for your magnificent delivery of our accounts for this year, and together with Nick, with the discerning questioning of what we needed to do, it's very rare. In fact, I've hardly ever seen it, and we spoke about it as the senior members of the board, that auditors do an evaluation before they start, and they say things are looking in the yellow, things could be in the red, or things could be in the green. Well, we started off on a lot of things in the yellow, and it's very exceptional to end up with everything in the green. That's testimony to not only our auditors, but for Paul, and very much for Nick, because he's got that questioning and attitude. And you know what? Sometimes people don't like it. Well, bad luck, so sad. You did a good job, because that's what a good director needs to do. Question and ask. And that's how we delivered those very good results that we did. I'd like to just spend a little bit more time on that to talk about our different service providers. We've got a service provider called Nemo, and we're moving into the digital age. It hasn't been difficult for us to move into the it has been difficult for us to move into the digital age, and lo and behold, we've got Nemo, and what do we know about good old Nemo? Yeah, they're okay about their job, and they've got Leanne and Peter. They give us good discerning advice. But what we found out about Leanne is, after they were given the contract with us, she comes from Ukrainian heritage. Her parents were members of Newcomers. That's rare. And that's the beauty of what we've got. We've got a very deep membership base. That membership base produces other people who've gone on to bigger and better things from Newcomers. But guess what? We're very proud of them, and I'm very, very proud of what we've done with Nemo and how we can get into the digital age. So, to me, alignment is about members engaging with us, our members, our staff engaging with us and engaging with our members, C-suite engaging with our members, our staff, and our service providers, because that's what C-suite does. They manage those processes, and our CEO, who leads us in that, and it provides me very, very savvy advice, and is not afraid to call it out as he should. And to me, if we can get that alignment between the board, the CEO, C-suite, staff, and members, that we can start growing. And I say start growing because Newcomers in the last few years, in fact, has not grown, and it needs to grow more. And I'll talk about that later on. I'll go down to the next stakeholder that we very much need to work with, and that is our community groups. Newcomers represents, is a member of the AFUO, but we're bankers. And as bankers, we need to understand our conflicts very, very well, and we need to understand our privacy issues, and we need to be a little bit more detached to deliver the services and the professionalism that our community wants in banking services. And we do that in a number of ways. We support over 23 organisations under the umbrella of the AFUO. Groups such as SUM, the AUV, the churches, the Ukrainian Crisis Appeal, many other groups play an essential role in preserving our culture, serving our people, and keeping our community connected. That's our glue. It's part of our DNA. One of the major things that we're very proud of, and in fact, one of the major things that I said to myself as I took over the chair is the commitment that we would give to SUM this year in the anniversary of 75 years in Australia, and is it 100 years of the existence of SUM, which they celebrated. Sorry, we'll talk about plus. But what the main thing is, and I am a member of Plust, I was a member of Plust, but I pay special tribute, I pay very much special tribute to SUM, because this has been their year. And we have on display the SUM patron, the Archangel Michael, and which I've learned is not only the Archangel Michael, the SUM patron, he's also the patron of Kiev. Now, this icon is special meaning to my family because it was restored by the late Irena Ljukovic, who was a deceased member who only died recently, and very favoured aunt in our family, and my wife especially. And she showed me photos of this icon before the last AGM, just before I took over as chair, and it means something very meaningful to me. It also, something very meaningful to me is when people say, what about Plus? Well, you know what, I've lived Plus all my life and that, but I also think that what people don't get is in SUM, they've got a group called Nadia. By far and away, community-minded, and really, if you have a look at our community and look at what the women of Nadia do, guess what? The silent ones that are unbelievable in what they do. Nadia, they give us all hope. So, and they do give us hope, and thank you for that. And thank you, Maru, who supports SUM, and also has been allowing us and her museum to put on display good old Archangel Michael. Now, I'd also like to thank a number of other very much special to me. Giggsy, head of AUV. When your stat was down, it was on fire, our building, 912 was on fire. It only took a phone call for Essendon and her mother to help us and keep our banking services. We never missed a beat. And that was a relationship that was built up very quickly by Ashley, who is a very engaging CEO, understands what community banking is, and that's a great example of phone call to phone call, how do we keep our doors open? We did. Now, we're here in Melbourne, and Melbourne have spoken about their issues, and we've got that, but we also represent in the bigger geographic reach of New South Australian community. And I'd very much like to thank Frank and our three directors of Newstad, Pavlo, Bogdan, and John, for their inclusiveness and how they work very carefully with Frank to make sure that we are in sync with the South Australian Ukrainian community, and we are. And it's testimony to them of what we can do together that I'm very much grateful to. And Frank, he was a director of Newstad, and contrary to what most people think, he was a director of Newstad, and he supported us to the hilt this year, and I very much like to thank him for that. I'd like also to thank Andriy Minshinsky, who is a New South Wales head of New South Wales Rumada, and for his candour and support of Newstad. And what I mean by his candour, we're now starting to punch in Sydney when we couldn't punch before. A lot of that is to do with Ashley, who recognised very early that if we're not going to be successful in Sydney, you can say that it's going to be too hard for us. Well, that was one of the things that Ashley did. He rolled up his sleeves and got involved with Sydney, and we seem to be starting to have good results. And I very much like to thank that for what's happened there. So, the importance of what I'm just mentioned before, alignment of all stakeholders is obsessional. We don't get those at alignment, we don't get those collaborations, we don't get the partnerships that we need. We start bickering amongst ourselves, we start questioning amongst ourselves, we start mistrusting ourselves. Well, we're going to get what we're going to get. That is not how the board of Newstad works. It is not how the CEO works, and it's not about our culture going forward. So thank you for that, and now I'd like to go to the next part of our discussion piece. We look at and very much like to acknowledge that the minutes of the 65th Annual General Meeting, which was held on the 10th of November 2012, were approved by the board at a subsequent meeting. Now, I just want to outline one little issue. That meeting occurred on the 10th of November 2024. The board met on the 14th of November and elected myself and as chair. As chair, I took on responsibility for major changes, and I look to you and I account to you for those major changes. I also look for inspiration from that I got from the board, and what we want to do in moving forward is very much sitting in those minutes that we did, and that we elected very quickly 2 new chairs in our subcommittees. We had a very good handover from Bogdan, and we've got an exceptionally driven deputy chairman and taking us into the future. That's what those minutes hold. There's been no Svartger on our board. To date, we've been united. That's what those minutes, in fact, every minutes of every monthly meeting is held so far. So I'd like now to turn to our financial performance and reflect in the broader context what we've achieved and what we're trying to achieve. And I say this very clearly, it's in the context. We achieved a good financial result, supported by you and our communities, and we had some major celebrations, yet we acknowledge we've got some major challenges. And those major challenges set out in a clear and ambitious strategic direction for our future. Our board made a decision that what we were looking for is a transition CEO to take us into the future. That direction says that we're moving away from being a cooperative, we're moving away to be a member-owned bank that help our members and help our communities thrive and prosper. But we're not doing it lightly. We're in what's called the COBA world. The COBA world is the the Community of Banking Association of Mutual Banks. Ashley comes from that background. A lot of our executives mix in that background. It gives us strength that we know what we're doing when we're operating in that mutual space. The decisions that we make are not taken lightly, they're measured. They're tempered at the CEO level, and they're tempered again at the board level. At the board level, we have open and clear discussions. There is not one time that any member of the board should ever feel that he's got something not to say. That's not the way we work. And that's reflective in the disciplined way we go about looking at how we're going to meet our challenges going forward and the commitment we're going to make to you as our members for the long term, not just the short term. So please now assess us on our financials for the year. We first look at our profits. Our profit before tax was $756,000. This, and you've got to put it in this context, this is a strong result, disciplined, reflecting cost controls, careful balance sheet management, and investment in foundational capabilities of the business that we were not doing before. We're not shy to make those investments. We're not shy to make the hard decisions that we need to do. Take that in its next slide and have a look at our assets. Our total assets have now increased to $287,100,000. It's up 11%. It reflects on a growing number of confidence as more members choose to bank with Newstat. However, and I'm going to say this however, when Ashley first did his strategic plan, he told us something very important. We're going to have to grow bigger and we're going to have to grow more if we're going to remain relevant in the Australian banking community. And so it is a good result at the moment with the resources that we had there. We're going for stretch moving forward. We then have a look at what we've done on our loans. We grew our loans up 9.4%. That's above industry average, but more importantly, where our strengths are, and this is based on our excellent bankers like Dom, who are discerning, of our arrears are well below industry averages. That gives the regulator confidence in your stat. But we've got to push our case continuously with the regulator, and that's what good old Paul does for us and good old Ashley does for us. That's their job, talking to the regulator in an open, collaborative way. And we very much thank our supporting members for choosing to bank with us and take our loans about, and to the credit that we are below industry average with our arrears. We then look at our deposits. Very strong, sitting at 13.4%. It shows something that's coming out and something that's not quite resonating in some of the activities that are going. It shows increasing trust, confidence, and engagement from our members. But that increasing confidence and engagement from our members is nothing short of the outstanding work that our bankers do for us. It's extraordinary. Let's look at the next slide, our members' equity. It rose to 28.2 million, reinforcing long-term strength and resilience of Newstat. Our capital adequacy, if we go to the next slide, very high, 21.1%, well above prudential requirements, even after the temporary revaluation that occurred in respect to 912 Mount Alexandra Road. We've got to be prudent in the way we manage it, and we've got to accept that we've got risks. And how do you accept that? Well, you know what? If a fire occurs, you've got to revalue, and you've got to make sure that you look at your worst case scenario and you build out from that. It demonstrates our financial strength and where we're going for the future. Now, we need to temper what we do. Newstat is a highly regulated Australian deposit institution. It's held to the same prudential standards as all Australian major banks. We've got no choice in that. People think that you could just go to and ring up and say, good old APRA, don't worry about us. Well, that doesn't happen. We're going to be talking about that later on. Because that's what management's job is to do, is present your status position at any particular time, and they do that continuously. Your deposits with Newstat remain under the government, under government protection for the government financial claims scheme. Please understand that, and please understand that this is a balancing act. If we do things wrong, we could lose that, and that's not what we intend to do. We intend to work with all our regulators, ASIC and APRA, and we intend to work with all stakeholders going forward to make sure we can give the best position for Newstat at any particular time. And what does that mean if we do that? Well, let's go to the next slide. If we do that correctly, then the community support can go up. How does the community support go up? Newstat has provided this year $634,000 in community support, and over the last decade that's 5.2 million. We've also done something more than that, and which we haven't been measuring and we need to measure. We have provided in-kind assistance to more than 25 community organisations alone this year, including some. And did I hear that word plus? Yes, we have. We've donated to the Future Ukrainian Fund, we've donated to the Ukrainian Crisis Appeal, and we've donated to our churches. That support comes if we are profitable. That support comes if we can grow bigger, then we can grow more profits. We are moving to be a mutual bank. Now, what does a mutual bank do that does very different from any other retail bank that's not mutual? It in fact invests back in its community. If you look in the COBA world talks about good old mutual banks that, and lo and behold, as John has told us, we should be investing back in our community at the minimum of 5%. Newstad does that more. If you have a look at retail banks, they'd be lucky to invest 1% in their communities. Why? Because they invest their profits and give it back to shareholders. We're a mutually driven cooperative, moving to be a bank that invests back in our community. And I don't know how many times I've sat there with Ashley saying, remain focused, think about our community. That's what we do. But focus actually means driving up our members and looking to our future. So, let me go to the next slide and look at our member experience of what we're going to do. And what we're happy to do this year, and as staff have told me, I've been here for 4 years and I've never seen as much change in the last 6 months. Yep, so what have we done? We've started to invest in our systems. We've started to invest in apps. We're very much looking forward to ensuring at any particular time that we've got the correct cyber security and fraud monitoring to help best protect you and support our members. And we do something a little bit more than that. Our staff fundamentally understand banking. It is without doubt, I look at people in our staff, they understand privacy, they understand security arrangements, and they live and breathe it. That gives management something that instead of monitoring staff, they can move on and manage different issues. Now, on the basis of staff, have we got Sasha here today or not? Yeah, is Sasha here? Yeah, okay. Guys, what I'd like to do, I'd like to honour two of our staff, and that is Sasha and Ivanka. I'd like to honour him in a number of ways and bring up some issues and identity issues that we need. Firstly, Ivanka, if you'd come up and for the flowers. Yeah, Ivanka has been with us for over 25 years. She represents blue and yellow for us, but more importantly, she also represents what her dedication and how would I say, her good-naturedness in how she serves our community. So, Ivanka, on behalf of all of Newstad, ďakujeme. Yeah, okay. Right. The other person, Sasha, she's not here, but let me tell you who Sasha is, and it's going to lead to our identity issues and that. Sasha has been with Newstad for 15 years. She's an exceptional, gifted banker. And what I mean, I live in Sydney. So what does it mean living in Sydney? Well, you know what, we get to watch what Melbourne does. And how do I get to watch what Melbourne does? I never get to see too much of what Newstad does, but I do get to see what Newstad does through social media. And so, what do I see with people like Sasha? She organises a community banking session in Sydney, and it's you get the wow factor, but you get such a wow factor. And what I mean by such a wow factor, how come over 60 people attended a business session on banking in Lidcombe, and how come a mother with 3 kids, travelled all the way from Melbourne to attend a business session on banking in Sydney. Well, I'll tell you how come, because Sasha speaks the language that those people want to hear to. They are the new arrivals who very much need trust, who very much understand banking circles, and they understand banking in a very different way. They understand it through the digital experience. And so when you look at and we're not as digitally minded as we could be, you look at things like Pavlos's, temporarily, right now, Sasha gives great service. That's what we've got. Get her out, and that's what we've got to do. And that's why, without Sasha being here, I think we should give her a great thank you for what she's done. So please join me in thanking Sasha. Right, now let's talk something about us. Who is us? Who is us in today's environment? President Zelensky is saying it's a historical moment for Ukraine. Well, it very much is for Dnister. Dnister is blue and yellow. Our culture, our language. It remains central to who we are and where we're going forward. We honour our heritage, but we're modernising and we're evolving. And how are we modernising and evolving? We look to the voices of our community. We look at Cardinal Buchok, or should I say, as Father Simon has said to me, and how the priests of the eparchy look at Episcop Buchok. Very important statement. He might be a cardinal in the Roman Catholic world, but for us, he is our bishop. And our bishop has very clearly outlined to us in his speech that he made at the AFUO that succession planning is everything in our community. At Dnister, we practice that. My predecessor, Bogdan, he thought that was the guiding light, and he left me in a very good position as chair to take us forward. And I very much appreciate Bogdan for that, and I very much appreciate Episcop Buchok's wisdom in guiding us of where we need to go. I then look at other people in our community. For example, I look at the ambassador. And at the AFU conference, he made a very profound statement. And he said, our culture is under attack. What does that actually mean? It means that here he is in the presence of Ukrainians. He will start speaking Ukrainian only. My Ukrainian is bad. I need to improve on that. But I also very much get it when people, even today, spoke to me and said, do you realise that I come from Ukraine, and do you realise that people are speaking more Ukrainian than they've ever done before? They're reading more Ukrainian books than they've ever done before. That is what we're going to be doing in Dnister. If you look at what Dnister has done in the past, it has always promoted Shkoly. It has always promoted our language. It's a part of our DNA. We're not giving that away. And then you look at the AFUO, and you look at Katerina and the advocacy she does to position Ukraine in our community. We very much respect that at Dnister, but we're also bankers to the AFUO, and we've got to make sure that we manage our conflicts at any particular time, that we remain as bankers and keep privacy issues for all the organisations that we represent, but we very much look forward to their guidance of what they do for us. Now, that's one issue to say through. Please realise that that's part of our DNA, and that's part of what our board is trying to do. Now, very much sensitive to Melbourne's needs. 912. There was a fire. The damage is extensive than first assessed. The process of dealing our insurer is taking a considerable amount of time. We need to work very closely with our insurer to make sure that our tenants get back in there as quickly as possible. We're also benefit from Nick's assistance in Nick understanding Essendon, and if you look at the position of 912, we've got to get back into it, and we've got to make sure that our staff is in a position to provide banking service in the modern age. That means that there will be changes at 1912, and already Ashley's talking about getting involved in concierge banking. We're also doing concierge banking, in other words, giving better service on the front line under very bad conditions that we work on in 926. It is challenging for everyone. It is challenging for our members who it is challenging from our frontline staff, it is challenging from our backroom staff, and it's challenging from our executives. And what that means at any particular time, I'm sitting there, doing remote conferencing with our CEO or other members, and I see the stress that they're working on. It's not an easy thing, and we've got to work out how to get back in there as expeditiously as possible, as well as balancing all other requirements in a transformational period. Now, saying that, how are we going to do it? I'll lead on now with our strategy.
Hi, I'm Ashley Hood, the CEO of Dnister Ukrainian Credit Co-operative, and welcome to our 2025 AGM. I'm delighted to share with you our exciting plans for 2026. This past year has been one of renewal, resilience and direction. Together we've taken important first steps in a long-term journey, strengthening our foundations, setting our course, and beginning to build the capabilities we'll need to grow and thrive in the years ahead. But to move forward, we first went back to where it all began. 65 years ago, a group of newly arrived Ukrainian immigrants came together with a simple but powerful purpose: to help one another start their new life in Australia. They didn't have much, but they had each other, and from that spirit of community and mutual support, Dnister was born. Those early aspirations, helping people get a start in life, building prosperity through community and community through prosperity, still guide us today. But how do we stay true to that founding spirit, people helping people whilst building a bank that's ready for the future? How do we grow, stay sustainable and serve our members even better? We don't want to be the biggest, we want to be relevant, valued and chosen. A bank that stands out because we are different, not because we are the same. A bank that remains proudly within our bond, the blue and yellow. A bank that stays true to who we are, continuing to serve the communities that built us and strengthening Dnister for the future. Our purpose brings that to life, to help our members and their communities grow, thrive and prosper. This year, we began transforming to build the foundational capabilities we need to grow stronger, become more financially sustainable, and deliver lasting value for our members. That means putting the right structures, systems and people in place to deliver on our strategy, strengthening governance and project delivery, investing in better data and digital capability, and creating new ways of working that bring greater clarity, accountability and focus. We've launched a new 5-year strategy focused on 4 key priorities: growth, financial sustainability, community relevance, and purposeful change. Each one is about ensuring we remain resilient, connected, and ready for the opportunities ahead. And while these foundations take time to build, they're what will enable us to move faster, serve better, and create more value for our members into the future. And as we look to the future, we're preparing for our next exciting step, repositioning Dnister as a modern mutual bank. A new name, a refreshed look, a renewed story. Not a departure from who we are, but a reflection of how far we've come. As Dnister Bank, we'll continue to honour the spirit of our founders, their belief in fairness, community, and a better future built together. That's what defines us, and it's what will carry us forward. To our members, Jakuyo. Everything we've achieved and everything we're building starts with your trust and belief in who we are. We were founded to help people build a better life, and that purpose still guides us today. Our members have always been at the centre of everything we do, shaping our decisions and aspiring our direction. We're taking that same spirit forward, growing stronger, serving with heart, and building a bank that reflects the community it was built from. Our story began with people helping people. That's what's always defined us and what always will. We look forward to sharing more with you in the months ahead as we continue building a future where our members and communities can grow, thrive, and prosper.
Thanks for that, Ashley, and for your outstanding work that you've done throughout the whole year. Look, it's very rare that you get a meeting that happens early in December. The meeting ends up with John writing an email of 9 points, and guess what? All of them have been delivered. And as John said to me, he said, Andrea, it's all going to happen. And I go, oh yeah, it did. And very much thank you to Ashley, and very much thank you to John for making sure that occurred. That strategy is going to enable Newstad to have a clear and confident future. And how we do that, we've got to modernise. But before we modernise, we've got to strengthen our foundation and position ourselves for long-term growth. So we've got to get our feet on the ground correct. Our vision reflects not only our future ambition, but it very much takes into consideration our heritage, our purpose and commitment to serving you as our members and supporting our community. We're not going to waver from what we've done in the past, but we're going to move forward into the future. How do we do that? We're going to look forward to very much the starting point that we've learned in the last few weeks. We're going to talk a little bit more, in fact, quite a little bit more, of getting our identity and making a clearer message to you. That clearer message will allow us to move forward with confidence. And how we do that with confidence is how we've got to connect with different people. We've got to learn how to connect with younger members and with people like you, Chantal, with people who are not as got as much grey hair as I have, but people who like the digital age and that, but have also got a pride of trust and long-standing reflection of our past. Now, what I want to do is, Wegger, are you in the audience, or Suzant? I can't see him. Okay, what I wanted to do is respect our founding director, Mr. Orin Ventanovic. Mr. Ventanovic, I don't know if you know, he was a project builder of the cathedral next door, and he was also sorry, not project builder, project manager, but come architect. He was an architect, and he was also the architect of the Geelong Catholic Church. He was a larger-than-life figure. He was the founding director of Newstad, and he worked on the original logo. And that logo and that ideas that he's given has served us very well as a community. And I'd like very much to acknowledge what Engineer Ventanovic did, and because his logo and his thing have stood us the test of time for 65 years. We're not moving away from that. We're moving and evolving to capture a new market. That new market is and we're going to do that as being a contemporary mutual bank. That means we need to change. And it's very much pleasant that I hear that we've got our C-suite behind us, we've got all our directors behind us, but we also need to take everyone in this room on that journey. And that's important to us. So how are we going to do that? There's a new identity that comes into place. We're going to try to give it with more clarity and more messaging and consistency in communication and in a value proposition in a more modern and compelling way, and building a recognition and trust across both existing and future members. In the first instance, that says that we need to work very heavily on yourselves and get our messaging across. That we intend to do. What we are now doing is we're excited about our new brand, we're excited about our new visual identity, and we're excited about delivering more services to more members. This is more than a new look. It aligns us with what we need to do to position ourselves to be an ADI in the Australian regulated market. We need to strengthen our resolve. We need to dig deeper into our connection with our community, because we're not going to move away from that. And we're going to search for new members with the same values and the same vision for the future. Right. Can I now open up to look at, I will now ask for questions from the floor, and then we'll introduce our financial statements. So has anybody got any questions? Yep. Hi, Slocum.
In relation to the fire in the Dnister building, you haven't mentioned too much about that. It's almost a year now since the fire. All the tenants have gone, all the income has gone, and can you give us some indication what's happening with the insurance? Will it be rebuilt? Will the tenants come back? As I've heard, none of the tenants are going to come back. They've all moved out to other premises and have signed leases. Well, we're obviously going to lose a hell of a lot of income from that. And can you give us some indication when we're likely to go back into that building?
Okay.
If at all, and what the current problems are with the insurance policy.
Hang on, let's go through slowly, Slocum. You asked a number of questions. In the first instance, that fire was in February or March? Yeah, March. So we're looking 8 months. That's the first issue. Now, the second issue is our insurer. How long are we covered for on those issues? Yeah.
There are two components to the insurance. Obviously, there's the building cover. Sorry? Okay, right. And the second one is the business income that you refer to. The insurer has accepted the indemnity for the fire. The business income protection component of the insurance policy covers us for 2 years from the date of the incident. So from March 2025 through to March 2027, our rental income, if you like, is covered under the policy. So we're receiving income from the insurer, notwithstanding the fact that the tenants have moved out. Many of the tenants are very keen to move back. Many of them are in temporary accommodation. They're in regular contact with our property manager, Uptown Partners, looking for an update on the status, because obviously they're keen to re-establish themselves as well. It is true to say some of them have terminated the leases. As Andrew said in his presentation, it's taking longer than we'd anticipated. The damage to the building was far more extensive than we had anticipated or had thought.
No, previously brought to our attention.
Okay, previously brought to our attention. The damage is significant. You know, all of the electricals need to be replaced, the lifts need to be replaced, the roof structure needs to be replaced. It is significant. And the current status of the claim is that we are working through the statement of works with the insurer. There's a bit of backwards and forwards at the moment. They have provided us with their reinstatement scope of works. We've had it independently assessed. It's not quite a like-for-like comparison, so we've gone back to the insurer with that feedback. So the expectation is, I'm really not in a position to say when it's going to start, but it's, you know, we're all chomping at the bit to get going. Our belief is that we will probably be back in sort of June, July next year, but you know, I wouldn't like to be held accountable for that, you know, because it is largely out of our control. What we do know is the insurer's accepted indemnity. We're working through the process. We have business continuity income through to March 2027. We're working very closely with the insurer. We're also working very closely with our property manager to ensure that, you know, things are running sort of in parallel, so that they're out there actively marketing the property for release when the property is completed. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I won't be known if everyone can hear me. Has the insurance company accepted liability? Yes, they have. It has?
Yeah.
Anyone else would like to ask a question?
Okay.
Дякую. Couple of questions, if you don't mind. The board, the report shows 6 directors. The Constitution states that we should have 7 directors. Now, in the advance notice of the AGM, which I'll come to that in a minute, but there's mention that there is a vacancy. Now, has there been any attempt made to fill that casual vacancy as a lead up to this AGM? In other words, because in the past we have been trying to bring in new people before it gives the opportunity for the board and also for members to understand what they're dealing with. So that's number one, because at the moment there's no mention about, and the only time the mention is mentioned that there's been no other applicants. But this leads me to the other point about openness. The notice that was given was inserted into the monthly notice that we all get as far as statements. That there was no mention on the email that this includes the AGM, and please, or reference to it. So, from what I understand, but certainly in my case, I missed that because it was only drawn to your good email this week that yes, that was listed on the 3rd of July. But when I go back to the 3rd of July, information from Dnister, which the heading was that it was this month's, in other words, the monthly statement. When you go to the 3rd page and the 4th page, that is an advance notice of the AGM, which people then have an opportunity. And it lists that there is a vacancy open. So that leads me to the question is, why wasn't it, as in the past, the advance notice to the members given, in other words, the advance notice of the AGM, so that people had an opportunity. If somebody wanted to apply for a position, then they had an opportunity to submit. And all the detail, yes, it was there, but even the formatting of the information was a bit, to me it was confusing. I don't know about others, maybe they also spotted it. But there should have been, I would suggest strongly, please, if we are going to go forward, that we issue the advance notice as a separate notice to the members and notify them that it is an advance notice, and because there's 2 pages of information, how to go about it, who to go about it, and the timing and whatever. So I can understand why there were no members applying for it or considering. But may I ask the question? I ask the question, pardon me, if I could just finish, please. Which leads me to the question, has the board actually attempted to, if there were any applicants from the previous year, whether they were considered? Because the information that we all got was that, yes, the election is as we see, but there were no other applicants, hence this is all that it is. But actually, we should really, as part of our openness, treat that advance notice as a standalone AGM advance notice to all members. So that's my request. The other thing is, in your presentation...
Can I...
Yeah, go on.
Yep. Can we answer your first part of the question dealing with directors?
Yes.
Right. And then you've got a second part, you've got a second
yes.
query. Okay,
yes.
Can we just deal with directors' issues?
Yes, please.
The world has changed. The world has changed thing. APRA now demands skills matrix. That skills matrix demands that we have to look at very clearly and outline what the skill sets of all board members are and what future skill sets need to be on the board. That works in a very collaborative process. The CEO outlines what his requirements are to take us forward. The CEO then outlines what, in his view, what kind of skill sets are needed by the board. The board then tempers that. You would know, and that tempers it. It works on the basis that there is a corporate governance committee, which you, as a chair of Newstat and a long-serving director who served us extremely well as a chair and a director, should know. That works on the basis that the corporate governance committee has got to work out those types of skill sets that are needed. It's not just by an application basis and what's needed to drive Newstat forward. That is a considerable long process. That took us over 18 months to get right, and that's now been put in place. Following that, we've done searches, and we are going to continue doing searches on that basis, but that is based on a skills matrix that we had to work out as a board, that we have to present to APRA, and APRA then have to approve. Now, why does that come into place? And that's not a thing that comes out of the air. There's what's called the Financial Accountability Act, the FAR legislation that's come in. That puts in accountabilities and responsibilities across all board members that never existed before. Board members need to be accountable for their specific roles. And that puts a lot of pressure on board members. When I first came in as a director, one of the first things that I did was get a deed of indemnity put in place for all directors to ensure that directors could confidently do their tasks in an open, discerning manner. Now, in an open, discerning manner, there is no way we could put on the board a member or somebody who's just hasn't got quite the right skill sets to what we need. That's one thing. Secondly, we are very, very, very concerned that we need to draw the pool of directors going forward from our community. And the way we're doing that is exactly as Book Done has actually outlined and done. We searched for younger directors, got those younger directors. We're now mentoring those younger directors, especially under John's tutelage. They're the things that get it. Now, where do we go to with number 7? Yep, we'd like to put on a number 7, but we'd like to allow members to choose. We could fill in a position that the directors ask somebody to step in. We've taken a different approach. We've taken an approach that we're going out to our community, and if we've not communicated, and this is, like, be very clear, this is the first time that I've heard that we've not quite, I've heard different issues that's occurred. If we have to simplify our processes, and that we'll do it. But we are searching within our community for the skills that we need to drive Newstat forward. That's one issue. The next issue, we need to practice diversity, and we will practice diversity. We are too male orientated. We know that. We're going to address it, but the way we're addressing that, very much the reason and the way we're addressing that is competencies and capabilities come first and foremost. We need that competencies and capabilities because we need to have that questioning ability on the board. As I said to you, people like Nick coming on the board, you know what? They don't accept everything goes on. I agree with him. That is our future, and that's what we need to look at. And hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you for that long answer, but the thing is, a lot of what you just mentioned has been addressed in the past. I agree with you. It's not been as rigorous as it is now because the APRA requirements have been evolutionary. But the thing is, as far as including diversity, I agree. But my point is that you may not know some other candidates that have not even been considered, but until it is available, in other words, if the position is available, well, let somebody put in their bid, go through the fit and proper process, which is not new, and I'll just draw that attention that if we are going to be open, we should, number one, try and work to the Constitution which fills in the number of directors. And I think in this case, because if the process is so lengthy, we've got to watch also, I would suggest that we don't reach a stage, this can happen, that instead of 7 directors, we find because we can't, the board of the day can't agree on who should be filling in the 4th or 5th or whatever, so we finish up less and less. The board should be, I suggest, attempting to fill the board to the full extent that they can. And that's why I draw your attention to that. Coming back to the, as far as the, your presentation, one thing that...
So have we finished with that issue with the...
Well, that particular one, yes, but my next question is, in your presentation, you have not mentioned anything about our Latvian members. What is the position in all your, in the strategy as far as Latvians are concerned, who have been very supportive to, my understanding is they still are supportive of our blue and yellow flag as far as and what's happening in Ukraine and generally. But is the board of the position that there's no, we are not going to continue working and supporting the Latvian community?
No way. Let me be very clear, no way. And I'll start with the first issues. Yes, I did raise the issue with our members. Red is important to us. I acknowledge that red was important to us. Let me look, well, I forgot what page it is.
Sorry, pardon me, when you say the Latvian community, have you mentioned, unless I missed it, have you mentioned the Latvian community participation in this strategy that you've declared?
Thank you to all, and especially to our Latvian members who share the same values as we do.
Yes, but...
And they are very much a part of our going forward. And guess what? In our strategy session, I do remember very clearly Ashley outlining was our strengths and weaknesses in a potential growth market, Sydney. I come from Sydney. I see the value of that community, and I very much look at our banker there. Sorry, no, that's on the Ukrainian side, Lydia, but also, Marika, outstanding, and what she does for us. And that part of our mix and going forward is how do you remain blue and yellow, and how do you stretch yourself and with groups like Red, which is the Latvians. Well, you know how I look at that. We've really got our answer to that. Our CEO comes from the Bendigo banking world, where there was the he was CEO of what was it, Delphi Bank? Delphi Bank that went. It was the Bank of Cyprus that went to Delphi. So he very much understands how to get that community growth going. So please, under your tutelage, under your leadership, yes, we did merge with the Latvians. We're not forgotten that, and the responsibility is on me. If you've perceived that I've not mentioned that, that is on me, not on anyone on Newstad that say that the Latvians are not important to us.
So I'm just mentioning that because it's an opportunity. Pardon? My apologies if that's your interpretation. The reason of drawing that is that we have incorporated Latvian community, and their support has been welcome, and particularly what's been happening in Ukraine. The Latvian community has been very supportive, and I've been respectful to them in all cases. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, if you can move the phone. No, so yeah, get the phone. Thank you. Yeah.
Obviously, I was quite. Just a quick one. Lithuanian and Estonian communities. I used to live in the old Soviet Union. I visited those communities and so on. And roughly speaking, right now they're very, very positive with the Ukrainians. Is anything happening in that general direction?
There is. There's quite a lot. Look, building on what my predecessor wanted to do was very much working that diverse market. Our new CEO came along and goes, well, hang on a minute, get your act together on what you've got, bed down your processes right, because he mentioned very clearly that we have to grow 5 times more to be sustainable and not be put into a merger situation. So that issue that you raise of how to become diverse but remain inclusive and service different communities is very much on with Ashley. Now, the little that I know from what he's done, we've recruited very carefully a strong C-suite member to tackle that more community areas. Yeah. And if you want to give the speaker, if I can allow you to enlighten a little bit on us.
For us to grow, we need to attract more members. We need to deepen a relationship with our existing membership base, but we also need to attract new members to the organisation. So our strategy is very much calibrated around building community relevance, feeding into the prosperity of the communities we serve. We're not excluding any communities. We're not excluding the Latvians. We're embracing those who have an affinity with us and our style of banking. We have employed a new Chief Member and Community Officer. We have created a new Head of Community Partnerships role within the business, very much focused on building strategies and plans to deliver value, share value, create opportunities for the communities we serve. If those communities are stronger, our business will be successful because they are supporting us.
Well, that's more concrete. Lithuanian and Estonian, any contact, any concrete contact?
Is that on? I haven't, no, but that is certainly on our roadmap for sure.
I apologise in advance if I've missed any notifications, and I do appreciate that we are working in an electronic banking world. However, the facility at Mount Alexander Road is now no longer open on a Saturday morning for telebusiness. I'm just wondering, essentially, is that going to reopen, and are the hours going to change? So I think currently it's 9 to 4:30, Monday to Friday, and closed on Saturday mornings.
Thank you for that question. The Saturday morning trading in the new, when we move back, or in the current premises? That's something that I wasn't aware of. I'm sorry. I'm not sure why. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure why we made that decision. I'll look into it, and if I could let members know.
Okay. Vasily.
Thank you very much. I'd just like Ashley to maybe expand a little bit about what the future mutual bank Dnister may be able to do. I guess from the start I should say I'm also a board member at Starachi Dim at Kalina Care, and we've had dealings with Dnister before, and we are in debt. We are in debt, gratitude debt to Dnister, because they helped us out in our situation, and we're grateful for that, and we hope that we will always be able to work with Dnister into the future. We want to congratulate you on the way you are sensing that the future is beckoning for us to change, for us to get ready and shape ourselves about future goals. Look, well, where I'd like to start is that, yes, we're looking at, I'd like you to make some comments about how restrictions may change with a mutual bank. We, in Starachi Dim, we changed our structure. I think something that I've mentioned to you two previously, but maybe not to others, where Kalina Care now regards an open market to be its own market. In other words, we accept residents from almost any part of the overall market. However, we do have something special for Ukrainians that guarantees that Ukrainians are not considered in any way at any time secondary residents or secondary applicants. And that is, we do something that Qantas does. You know, when you've bought business or you've got your paperwork in order, they shuttle you past the masses, the crowds, and straight through, and you just go faster, and you're not held up in long queues. So I think what we do is something like that. When a Ukrainian applies to come to Kalina Care, goes to the top of the waiting list. So in essence, Ukrainians are not held back, not set back by the fact that we have opened up to a very much broader market than we initially thought we would do. It's a sort of a fast track that I think that Qantas calls that. Why I raise these issues is that I just wondered whether into your future planning you might also throw in something like the potential future ownership, partial ownership of a Ukrainian community centre. Now, it's a big bill. A community centre is a big bill, and I'm afraid that just a relaxed attitude right around the community is not going to save the community centre. And what it would be like to have a bank, a strong bank, and a weak community centre or no community centre. I think it's essential that people take ownership of more than just their own private organisation.
Can I just stop you so we can focus on certain of your issues and then take one step at a time? Ashley, I think the first issue to address is expansion, of how we view expansion, but how do we protect blue and yellow, but also work in different markets and with different community groups?
Thanks for that question. There was a lot in that. I guess we've got a 5-year strategy, yeah? And we're delivering that over the next 5 years. The first 12 months, as Andrew said in his speech, is very much around identifying who we're for and understanding what their needs are and how we help deliver that need. And so for us, it's about, we want to grow our business because we need to grow to be sustainable. We've identified what sustainability looks like after 5 years. And to Andrew's point, that's about growing our member base. We currently have about 9,000 members. For us to be sustainable, we think that number's about 14 or 15,000. So we want to build a business or a bank that has a value proposition or a point of difference that attracts new members to our business, but also deepens relationships, deepens connections with our existing customers. But to do that, we just can't magic it up. We've got to build foundational capabilities. The new brand, that's part of that story. Simplifying our business, looking at our products, reducing complexity, looking for product gaps, removing hands-off stuff. There's a lot of manual intervention across our business. So improving efficiency, freeing people up to focus on things that matter, and that is serving and meeting customer needs. So the next 12 months are very much about focusing on the foundational capabilities, earning the right to grow. And then years 2 and 3, where I guess building momentum on the back of the foundational capabilities that we've built. And that's about having conversations with a broad range of people who have an affinity for our type of banking, yeah? Our success is very much dependent on the success of our customers or our members and the communities we serve. If both of those things are happening and both of those are successful, then it stands to reason that our business will be successful. So our focus is on the better for me, so making sure our products are relevant, meaningful, value for money. We're strengthening the capacity of the community because a stronger Ukrainian, Latvian community or communities that have an affinity with our community is good for us. So that'll happen in years 2 and 3, and then years 4 and 5 is when we're starting to look for adjacent opportunities. With regard to the question around the community asset, you know, that's something as a business that we would always be open to supporting, because if the community is strong, that's good for our community. And if the community is sustainable and prosperous, then our business in turn is successful and prosperous, because there's this reciprocity happening.
Thanks for that answer. Look, what I'd like to do is to share, if I can have support from my board members, some of their insights too. We're talking about organic growth. We've got expertise on our board who understand tuck-ins and understand mergers and acquisitions. And from that understanding too, it is actually how to protect our bond. And John, do you mind answering a couple of issues of how do we protect our bond and move forward? Yeah, because I think this is very, very important, and you've got the insights to do that.
Thank you very much. Okay, look, I spent quite a bit of time working for a company called Beyond Bank Australia. And as we grew that business quite significantly over time, what we found was that we started to lose what it meant to be a member of that business. Because we coupled together so many other businesses, you started to sort of lose focus of who your target audience was. And that created quite a dislocation for us for some time, until we then decided to go back and actually appointed an executive in charge of community banking specifically to, again, bring back that community feeling and to really focus on the sort of clients we wanted. And when you think about it, the Ukrainian community already has that. We're the only ethnic bank left, and we have a community in which we believe we resonate with and in which we believe we can thrive in. So we did a good look, we had a good look at our community and said, you know, is there enough Ukrainians and affiliate members to be able to grow this business and to make it sustainable? And we came to the conclusion that it is. So we're very much bonded to our community. And it's always going to be extremely important to us. So, you know, we have the right focus, I believe. We know how we want to grow, as Ashley's already said and the chair's already said. And we're very clear in our strategic direction of where we want to go. And sometimes the big boys, what you're finding at the top end is that they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, but what they're losing is actually that specific sort of market that they're after. They lose themselves, and it takes a while for them to start to understand where it is who they're serving. So a lot of the big mutuals are now really competing with the Commonwealth Bank or ANZ or a lot of the commercial banks. They're just in the open market. They're not like us. They're not really fit for purpose in a community sense. So I think it's very important that we keep that. I think it's very important that we can use that to grow our business successfully.
Thanks for that, John. Yeah, look, those insights are important, and it's also very important to realise that we've got voices in many other areas. We've got Ashley, we've just heard from John. We've got our new C-suite that have come in. They come from one person in particular who's our IT person, comes from had experience with the Bank of Cyprus now then became Delphi Bank, which Ashley was also managing director of. And more importantly, we also got a very good marketer, Emma, who understands not only blue and yellow, but understands red and understands how to thread red in. And so our voices are being, and I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to all our people, and that's what can only make us better. So I very much thank you for that, and I thank Ashley and John for their insights for that. Right. Yes, Slavko.
Mr. Chairman, you've opened the meeting up for discussion and questions.
Yep.
Can I assume that you're not going to say any more?
About what?
About especially this section 75 removal?
Do you want me to?
In the Constitution?
No, you can actually that's a question you've got before we go to the financial resolutions.
Sorry?
Before we go to our other resolutions, yes, you can ask those questions.
You're not going to make any comments about that, are you?
I've made some comments right at the start.
Well, okay. Look, I listened to that Zoom program that you had a couple of weeks ago.
Yes,
and I'm not clear exactly why this resolution is here to get rid of Section 75. You talk about flexibility going into the future and APRA, blah, 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 but you don't specifically say or asking us to approve the abolition of that clause 75. You say you've had discussions with APRA, and as I understand it, you've had a separate confidential letter from ASPRA, and I don't know what's in that, and I assume no one in this room knows exactly what's in that letter. Can you explain to us in pretty crisp and clear terms why you consider it necessary to abolish clause 75? Because that clause has been in the Constitution for decades. It's never been a problem. Why is it suddenly become a problem? Because the value of all the assets are increasing. You look at the valuations from 10 years ago to today, all those properties owned by Dnister are valuable assets.
Hang on, one step at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, Jaco.
You're not able to disclose to us what that confidential letter from ASPRA was?
Slavko, at the very start of this meeting, I outlined to you why we withdrew it. What we're going back to APRA to do is particularly to look at the disclosure requirements of what we can actually do, because that's what our members have asked for. We're going to APRA to consider and tell them very clearly of what members' concerns are about. Then we're going to analyse what APRA said, and then we're going to consult again, because that's what we needed to do, and that's what you asked. So right now, we are very much got the issue of what disclosure is about. We're going back to make sure we can get clarity to our members of what APRA we can disclose or can't disclose. That's what we've got to do.
So the obvious thing to me is all this as a result of the fire at 912?
No, it's well before that.
Well before that?
Yes, this has been ongoing discussions before it too. You attended that session. That was the first session thing. It was very much clear, and in every town hall session that was attended, that this is not specific to Newstad. The exit planning under CPS 190 goes across all APRA-related ADIs. And what APRA is saying is put together credible plans. So that's what we're trying to do. And now we've got to go back and consult to our members. That's what we want to do, Slocum.
I still don't understand. And I don't think many people here do either. What is the main reason, other than telling us about flexibility and looking to the future and blah, blah, blah? There's no specific crux answer given why this clause has to be abolished. It's been there for decades. It's never been a problem. And the assets are going up in value. And if there is an issue, I remember back in the pyramid days in the 80s, there was a state and a crisis with Newstad. Newstad had, I think, $1 million invested in pyramid. There was a problem that we could lose all that. We had the Register of Credit Co-ops came to our general meeting And he said, don't worry, your assets, everything's going to be fine. John Cain put a one-set levy, I think, at the petrol pump. We got our $1 million back, but we lost all the interest. Now, that was a crisis. There was no threat to sell any of the assets at the time. What has suddenly changed in the meantime that this thing keeps propping up? Thank you.
Right, Ashley, do you want to answer some of that part? Yeah. Before I go into it, yeah.
Under CPS 190, which is a APRA regulation, they require all ADIs to have a recovery and exit plan, all ADIs. They require those recovery and exit plans to be credible and effective. They met with the board in 2022 and wrote to the board subsequent to that meeting outlining that in their view the requirement for 75% of members to vote the approval of the sale of the asset was an impediment or a barrier to the effectiveness and credibility of that plan. It's as simple as that. They asked us to address it. We tried to address it in 2023, resolution was withdrawn. We've tried to address it this year, resolution was withdrawn. As Andrew said, we'll now go back to APRA to say, hey, we had a go, this is the member feedback, this is what we're planning to do. There's nothing more to it other than that clause in our constitution, in APRA's view, is a barrier to the plan that we've put forward being credible and effective.
Right, thanks very much. Yes, Yadama.
Did you want to ask a question? Because there was another one.
We've come here to vote effectively on the financial statements and vote for the directors, etc. It's been very clearly stated that the resolution to vote on the paragraph has been withdrawn. You know my sentiments. I've been to your 2 town hall meetings. What I strongly suggest, and really there's no further, as far as I can see, there's no further discussion on that today. What I seriously think you should consider is what Ashley's just virtually said. Go back to APRA, explain to them, and ask for very, very clear directives of what their opinions are. And you should be more open to the members and disclose what was made or what was written in this letter. Once you've got all those facts and figures, I strongly suggest that you only call a meeting here in Melbourne for the Victorian members, and you call a similar meeting in Adelaide for the Adelaide members, and you only discuss that. This way you'll get a 2-hour conversation going up and down, and this way you can always then go back to APRA and tell them this is the final decision. Now, getting back to the questions and answers, I'll reiterate what I said at the town hall meetings. If you want to move forward, Ashley, credit cards.
Hang on. Could I just stop you for 1 second? You can sit down. I could say the directors collaborate together very well, very, very well. And Bogdan came to me and said, don't forget about that credit question that you're going to get answered. So Ashley, don't say that you weren't told, because you were very clearly. Do you want to make a comment on that or not?
Thank you for that question. Again, as I mentioned earlier, our strategy does include the development of a product strategy and roadmap, and that's about simplifying our product set, looking for product gaps, and certainly credit cards is part of our consideration. But credit cards quite expensive. There's significant investment involved. So as part of any consideration, we would need to ensure that it's financially viable for the business. But over the next 12 months, certainly our focus is very much around those products that deliver maximum value to our members, and that's those core products around lending and deposits and investments. But certainly credit cards will be part of the roadmap, but it certainly won't be a year one priority.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Look, to answer your question, Yarama, and to your question, Slavko, I'll just reread the opening paragraphs that I said. I'd make this point. I want to reassure all members again, there are no plans to sell the Essendon property. As Ashley said, this has been driven by the regulated CPS 190. It's not driven by the fire that occurred. Two, I want to make a point that I said before. We know that some members had questioned about APRA's confidential correspondence to the board and whether it was somehow connected to a potential sale of Essendon. Three, on that basis, I very much clearly that our board is consultative, it's collaborative. Pilot comes over the phone and tells me very, very clearly, resolve the issue of the confidential correspondence. It was a no-brainer. It was a 2-minute discussion. It was then put to the board. The resolution was then decided to take it off the board. And that is how our board works. Collaborative, consultative, and trying to listen to our members. We don't always get it right. And sometimes we're a little bit deaf, and we shouldn't be. But this is about openness and transparency. That makes us strong. And I very much value every voice in this room, every voice and that's how we work collaboratively together. And so, as Ashley outlined, our steps in our process is, he wrote to me very clearly and said, yes, I understand I'll need to inform APRA that the concerns that the members raised. I mentioned that. We're also going to spend more time engaging with all stakeholders to do something very clearly that Slavko's asked. Give us clarity. Then, the next steps are going to be, after our analysis, if and only if it's needed, we'll hold another meeting, as exactly as you actually said, only on this point. But we can only do that once all members and stakeholders have all the relevant information to make an informed choice. And that's going to be the process that we're going to have to work through. So I very much thank you again for asking those issues, and thank you again for producing it. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Right. Hang on, we've got an... Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Just one more question. You've mentioned in order to remain sustainable, the member base needs to increase from 9,000 to 13 or 14,000. In my humble opinion, that is a huge, significant increase. I appreciate that you're forward-thinking and you're solution-focused with a 5-year strategy. Worst case scenario, what if that doesn't happen? What if that significant member base does not increase to the 13 or 14,000, or, God willing, it goes higher, but what if it is less? What if it only comes to 11,000 or 12,000? To remain sustainable, what happens if you don't?
I mean, it's a good question. It's based on a lot of assumptions, yeah, and it's aspirational. It's not a case of, we're at 13,000, we're now sustainable. It's an aspiration that we've set ourselves. It's a target. We've said if we get to this and we assume this, this and that, what's the outcome? What it doesn't assume, for example, is deeper meeting more of our existing member needs. So we've got 9,000 members, but our penetration of products across that membership base is quite low. I actually checked some of the data because I thought it was wrong. Our personal loan portfolio, our home lending, investment home lending, they're quite low. So sustainability can be achieved by doing more with our existing members, as well as attracting new members to the business. So it's an aspiration that we've set internally. doesn't mean if we don't get there we're not sustainable. It just means that there are different pathways to sustainability.
Sorry, sorry, and I've got one more question at the back, and then I think we'll have to close out. So, yes.
Hello, Steve Zaharko. Following on from that last question, we know that since February 2022, some 6,000 newcomers have arrived just in Victoria alone. Has there been any success in getting additional members from this cohort?
Who's best to answer that question? Yes, Ashley, you in a position to answer that question, or?
Anecdotally, we've had significant success in acquiring new members from new arrivals. And I think... I mean, our member base hasn't grown proportionately over that period of time, and we've had good success. Much of our member growth has come from new arrivals, but of that 6,000, I'm not sure what percentage is attributable to our member growth.
Sounds to me like we need to work in that area.
Sure, absolutely. You know, we have a new arrivals package, I think, which is let's call it a product that the business developed to make arriving in Australia and starting a new life seamless, and that has had significant success. There are some other things that we're looking at the moment, being part of the Australian government's first home loan deposit scheme. Many new arrivals, NEDACs, don't have the necessary deposit to purchase a home. So being part of the first home loan deposit scheme gives us the opportunity to offer that government guarantee support to those new arrivals.
Look, I'll take two other questions, Angelique. I'll just wait one for yourself. And sorry, Valik, you were asking for a question again? What's the time?
Thank you. I'm not asking for a question. I'll just say that what I was going to suggest is a method by which maybe this long process that you outlined, and I understand the difficulty that there may be, but it has worked in the past. It can be a bit torturous, and that is by consultative process, and that is by setting up a consultative committee of eminent, in other words, when I say eminent, of cross members of our community who are well known to our community, are representing various organisations, who can then, after this process, work with the board. And this is on a confidential basis, so that I'm not aware of other credit unions working this way, but it has got us out of similar type of difficult questions, which are difficult to, particularly where the APRA is involved, of actually getting the message across. You have a good cross-section of directors, but I think also there's always that question is, there's the unknown of the membership and their perspectives, and if you could marry that up with this, I'll suggest a consultative process of worked of 4 to 5 members from the community, representing different areas of the community, maybe, and then also on a confidential basis, they all sign up the confidentiality agreement, so it's treated as an assistance to the board to make a decision. Decision is still left to the board. It's not usurped by this group, but it taps into the membership concerns or issues that may be, and some of these maybe you may have heard from, got a feeling from today. Just a suggestion.
Ďakujem for that suggestion. Very much. Angelique, could you... Yeah, yeah, and sorry. And then I'll take one last question.
Yes, my name is Angelica Peterson. So I actually work for Dnister. I represent Latvian part of the business. I don't have a question as such, just to add what was raised by gentlemen at the front about, the membership growth, particularly newcomers. As you highlighted, Sasha Vashenko, she works so hard to actually bring these new memberships to Dnister. But I just wanted to point out that I would say since 2022, we have had a significant number of memberships because members have passed. And I'm just saying that because I'm actually dealing with deceased estates. So you have to keep that in mind. Sometimes you don't see, on average number grows, but there's actually been a lot of new members, but a lot of old members passing. That's all.
Thank you very much for that observation. Look, I'll enlighten you a little bit on that. We've got very, very good discerning management, and your voice, just in recognising that, just recognises that the issues that have been raised by Ashley when he first came aboard, and it was like, I was wondering, how come I'm being interviewed when I'm the chair, and he's asking me these pertinent questions. That's what a good CEO does, and that's how the planning process was put together. Very much, and I just listened to the analytic discussion about our answering process moving forward. This day and age, it's evidence-based decision-making, and that means getting involved in our analytics, getting an understanding our member base and how to drive that. I very much got the issues that Ashley said. Maybe it's not about new members sometimes, it's about looking at our current membership base and what we can do. That issue has been was raised at this meeting and was put together with our strategy plan. But I'll re-emphasise one major issue here, your voice. All voices here are important. Unfortunately, we're running a little bit out of time, so I'll take one last question from the gentleman there. I'm sorry, and sorry, sir, you've been, yeah.
My name is Pablo. Just a question.
Yeah.
Since the chairman of the board comes from Sydney, is there a chance of opening up a branch in Sydney?
There is a branch in Sydney. There very much is a branch of Sydney. It's run in Strathfield. It's run from the Latvian community. And one of the amazing things, if you look at the successes that Newstad has got, you look at Strathfield of what we do, and it's right at the core of the Latvian community. They punch pretty well in that small base, in that Latvian community. We need to do better at Lidcombe, and we've got Lydia who does an exceptionally good job, and I hear from Andrei Manchinski tells me that quite considerably. I hear from Ashley, and I also remember telling Ashley to take off Sydney from the at our strategy meeting when he said no, we need to look at it. That's on me. I got that particularly wrong. That's it seems to me that Sydney is a growth area, but can I just temper you on one thing? I may be from Sydney, but my roots are Melbourne. Well, it was roots, and I find that I can't navigate around Melbourne so much, so I must be now Sydney-based after 25 plus years living in Sydney. But I do not, very clearly, it is those people who are closest on the ground can actually advise us very carefully of how we move in the different geographic areas. So I very much appreciate the question that's given. We are going to run out of time, but I see some passion over here on the right. Yes, Peter. Yeah.
With all the argy-bargy that's been going on for the past 24, 48 hours and emails being sent, you do have my email address, but I find out that this correspondence is going around through the BBC rather than get any correspondence from Newstad. Why is that?
I'd like to a little bit. Pete, thanks very much for enlightening us on that. So you're still saying that you never received correspondence in the last 48 hours of what's going on. Look, Ashley, can you just... look, there's two ways of answering that question. I've got the first. Ashley, can I have your view on that? Yeah.
All communications are sent to the members' preferred communication channel. So if we don't have that on our system, then we...
You do have my email because you've written to me about 2 weeks ago.
Well,
Okay.
if we've
Pete,
got it,
Pete, but what we're going to do, Pete, just to help you, what we're going to do is exactly what we did at the town hall meeting. We're going to have to take that on board and answer your question. So if I understand very clearly, your query is, we've got your email, how come you never got your 48 hours? You did ask very thing, and what I'm grateful for the question that you did ask at the town hall, that our people got back to you very quickly on that. We're going to do exactly the same thing on that basis. Now, here lies the beauty. What I'm going to do now is here lies the beauty of answering your question about these email addresses and that. And this is where I get the best advice. And let me, hopefully I've paraphrased this correctly when I was asking John, how come these things happen? He goes, Andre, it is as basic as this. They're not updated. There's 10 different reasons why certain things of a major client base that people get wrong. And sometimes with all the best intentions, it is simply somebody didn't press the right button or the right thing was done. Is that correct? Yeah. And this is the beauty that we've actually got. Guys, you know, we're not perfect. We're trying to do what we can do. We will come back to you with our answers on that. But so I'll leave you with that now. Sorry, I don't know your name, but sorry, your name. And if we can finish up on this. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Natalia. I've got a question. You've talked about screening for board members in terms of skills, qualifications and competencies. How do you screen for your personal bankers? Because I've had a lot of issues with incompetent staff.
Sorry, can I just clarify, you've had a lot of issues with Dnister staff?
With Dnister staff, yes, especially cancelling my direct debits without my consent. I lost my health insurance, I lost my internet service, had to contact all my service providers, and I was told it was a misunderstanding when I made it very clear what my instructions were in writing and verbally.
Okay.
That's incompetence, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
No. Okay. Yeah. Is it, Ashley, do you want to take that on board? Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you. Yeah. He's going to deal with it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. That's the end of our questions. Can I now move to the next session, please, which is to do with looking at our financial statements. If I can then go to the first issue, we now come to the formal session of this meeting. I'd like to look at all these resolutions in the notice of meeting and invite members to vote on each item in order. The first resolution we're asking for is to receive the report of the Board of Directors, the financial statements, the auditor's report for the period ending the 30th of June 2025. Can I show of hands? Yeah. Yeah. So, in favour? Yeah. Yeah. We accept? Yep. Thank you. Rightio. Thank you very, very much for that. Now, if I can go for the Directors' Appointments Resolution, we have 2 vacancies and 2 eligible candidates in this election year, and they were uncontested. In the first instance, can I have show of hands of face for the following resolution? That John Lipkovich is appointed as a Director. In favour, may we have a show of hands? Yeah. Right, accepted? Yep. Okay. Can I have... yes. Yeah, sorry, the summary of the proxies are on the screen. Yep. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, and for the next resolution, I put the following resolution, that Mr. Nick Bulgarin is appointed as a director. In favour of? Les, are you voting or not? Right. Okay, that was his mother. Right. Okay, in favour, it passed. Thank you. Rightio. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much for all of you. Sorry, I'm just going to be... Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, my apology. I missed out on the major one, one of the major ones, the remuneration. I put the following resolution to the board, that the total director remuneration pool remains at $115,000 per annum plus superannuation guarantee contribution. In favour? Okay, passed. Thank you. And thanks very much. That brings to a close the resolutions for this meeting. And now I'd like to bring some closing remarks. What can I say about Newstad? Our future... Hang on, just a little bit quiet. I haven't finished. Give me a couple of minutes, thank you. I'm looking to our future. The directions that Newstad needs to take is strong and purposeful. We're looking to laying the groundwork, strengthening our organisation, sharpening our focus and positioning Newstad for long-term growth and resilience. We have clear priorities, we have clear priorities, stronger foundations and a renewed commitment to deliver to our members and communities. We see Newstad as you see Newstad. We see it as a modern organisation, deepening our community relevance and building greater financial sustainability. It's a very important step that's occurred today. We heard from you, we heard from our voices, we heard from our new CEO, we even heard from our board members as we transition to a modern mutual bank. And on that basis, I'd like to thank you very, very much for today, and we rest assured we're trying to move forward with confidence, clarity and purpose. Newstad exists for you and for our future generations. Thank you again. Right, now, we close our meeting with the anthem? Yep. Okay, can you please be outstanding for the Australian anthem? Thank you very much. Where's that last slide? Actually,